to Before You Tank, thriving in an industry that sucks. We say it sucks because 98% will fail. Our mission is to make sure you don't. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I had a thought this morning that we're sitting here in genuine love and passion to share, but it dawned on me, these people have no clue who we are. So you guys, we're hoping that you've caught on to us and you've enjoyed our banter. We hope we've given really good, valuable content, but I got thinking, let's dive into who we are a little bit so that these people kind of go, oh, now I'm going to listen a little better. Right?
It is funny, right? Because you think we're going to have the website, sure, and our profiles and everything. But when you're a podcast, it's like there's so many people that will hear this and they're never going to go back to the website. Let's just be honest, right? So
Exactly.
Let's get a little bit deeper into this. It'll be fun.
Right. And at what point do they go, I like you or I don't like you? Right. Is that kind of what they're doing? And then they go, but even if I don't like you, if you have a good background, I might listen. So I think it'd be really fun. Pawan, you have a really, really cool background. In fact, you guys, I was asking him, I said, I think it would be really fun to share stories, like our best and worst stories, but we want to do that, but we want to protect the innocent and the names. And so we have to figure that out a little bit. But he started talking about, well, I've built for luxury planes and sometimes they just want to make one of this. And I'm like, you have to share this. So tell us who you are.
No, it's interesting because when I start working in this industry, right, I was just taught, I tell people, okay, I design the seats and people like seats. But then actually what I really work on is the seats for, my background is designing the seats for luxury aircraft, like executive seats, which has anything you can ask for, right? If you have money, you ask, okay, I need heating, I need massage, I need my seat gold plated, name it. And
so it's like a Brookstone best in a plane.
But that's one part of things, right? Like having that luxury product, but then I have that luxury product, it needs to go on the plane which can fly. And it has really strict regulations with the certifications and everything. So my thing is...
So you can't just take a throw... You know how they have those back massaging seat things? You can't just take that on a regular luxury plane.
No, you cannot.
You can't. Oh my God, I didn't know that. That's hysterical. Okay.
Well, you had to do that. It was probably got $1 million or $2 million cost of developing that kind of technology. Wow. So it's not only the seats. You have to develop the new technologies. You have to consider the weight. You have to have that all aspect of the product, and it has to certify crash testing. Like I have designed product for 16G crash, all the way to 23G crash testing. And
23G crash, you mean going down fast?
Yeah, going there fast, and you have to survive on that seat.
Oh, wow, that's a lot of pressure.
That's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot to ask of a seat, but I'm in.
Especially when it's gold plated.
I'm in.
Well, I don't think so they care about that gold plated on that point, but I think learning from that whole experience, like I work on that industry with different companies, and learning from that, like not only seat, but then I also got involved with the entire interior of the aircraft. Like when you walk in the aircraft, whatever you see or touch and feel, every aspect has a design, and you have to follow regulations. You have to meet those standard quality criteria for everything. Airbus and Boeing are one of the things, like the competitor, their documentation is strict. You cannot deviate anything. I think with that experience, I think I built really good experience about what product should be, how to design the product, and how to make this product efficient, because aviation is all about the cost.
Yep.
Weight is most important, and it needs to be strong, and it needs to look luxurious.
Right.
So
wow. So you're adding a lot to one little product. That's pretty impressive, because that makes sense now why when I send you something, now I see your thought process, because you are always making it awesome look at the cheapest price with high quality. Because you know that naturally.
That's what
that's a lot. That's pretty impressive, because that's a little hard to come by.
That's hard to come back. And another thing is like we had aviation industry is not like you just start working a product one year and you have 5 years. I have a crash testing happening. I failed the test. I had to find a solution in a day or two, develop it and send it. So we are I've been to that working rush and making sure the right quality product goes on there. And also supporting a lot of manufacturing of that product. And that's where I got my manufacturing background, where I learned how to work with the manufacturing, how to make the prototypes. And I think Literally, like I have made prototypes from the cardboard boxes just to prove the concepts, all the way to the actual like sheet metal parts where we're drilling the holes on the sheet metal just to prove a concept. And I think that really helped me to understand what product should be, how it should be, how to work with the customer, because I'm involved, right? And I think that's where I'm like really enjoying this podcast, because I think I'm giving that knowledge that I learned to everyone who can use that knowledge, like working with you guys and providing that feedback. I think that's challenge for me. I enjoy doing that, but also helping them too.
Yeah. And let me tell you, most of the products that I've sent you don't crash. They don't have to make it through the crash test.
They don't have to crash it, but they need to.
Now I know
quality.
why your brain is working the way it is. Because I'm always like, well, can't you just throw this piece on this piece and make it happen? And you're like, no, it doesn't go that simple. So now I get it.
Yeah, it's not only crashing, right? It's also reliability. Like the product needs to be reliable.
Oh, totally.
And I think I've seen a lot of time, like people forget that reliability part. They said, okay, I have these three parts goes together and they work fine. Now my question is, are they going to work fine for the 100th time? 1,000 times, it's going to fail it.
Yeah.
And I think that's that's really fun part. And I enjoy doing that.
That's awesome. Yeah, you thrive on that. I can tell. But what a fun way, right? To be able to sit here and share with people your 20 years experience from your perspective for them. Isn't it fun? I mean, I think this has been probably the funnest thing I've ever done, even though I have no clue what we're doing. I mean, I seriously have no idea, but I'm loving it. And I don't know if, obviously I'm a talker, so maybe I like hearing myself talk, but I don't think that's it. I think I like that we have banter and we're really sharing content. So I'm so excited that you agreed to do this crazy idea with me. So Keith, I gotta know, tell me about you, baby. What made this?
Oh man. So I think my path in getting here only makes sense if you're ADHD, because that's sort of like what it looks like. It's all over the place with,
Hey, welcome to that world. Go ahead. Yep.
So when I step back and I look at my career, I kind of jokingly call myself the accidental rocket scientist, and now I'm not even doing rocket science anymore.
You guys, literally, he's a rocket scientist. I mean, that's his degree. He's an aerospace engineer. Isn't that like, when he told me that one day, I almost fell over. So and really, and now he does marketing.
Right. It's funny, and so people are like, "How did you get from there?" So I think that's worth talking about, right? Because I get so many people asking me like, "You have a degree in aerospace engineering. Why are you not working for SpaceX? Why
Yeah.
And so
exactly.
My career path, my experience to this point has been quite a journey, and I think what I've realized is that I really enjoy the technology, the business, and the market, and bringing them all together and conveying why each piece is important, right? So I speak the language of the technologists, I speak the language of the market and the business leaders, and I'm able to, be that bridge in between and help bring that all together.
That is what makes you amazing, because you really, I mean, no offense to engineers, because they're wonderfully awesome people at what they do, but they don't usually have a marketing personality. They don't have that talent.
Because that's not what their job is. That's not what their focus is.
But you have that incredible ability. Like, I have seen you look at what's so foreign in my head, because I don't think I'm a dumb person. I can pretty much catch on into technology pretty quickly, but I've looked at things where you're like, well, let's market it like this. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't even know what we're looking at yet. Do you know what I'm saying?
I love that impersonation. Can you run that one again?
But it's amazing that you have that gap. I always keep saying that you should bottle, but you're right, you have that gap. And then on top of it, you are a CEO mind. We've had that conversation before. Like, it's hard for my ego to go, you really shouldn't be the CEO, but I could. But I don't want to, because it took me a long time to realize I just want to sell it. I want to have a lot of fun. I want to make a lot of money, and I want to get my time off when I want it. So tell us now, why the company? Why growth strategy? Why?
And so I think to do that, I'll go all the way back for a minute and just talk through it and how we got here. And also kind of encourage anyone who's on their path and realizing like I'm in a spot, but I really want to make a change, is that you really can grow and develop some of these skills and abilities, right? Because when I first started, obviously I did not have the same perspectives and didn't even realize some of the gifts I had until I worked at them and developed. And how that looked was I started for a big company. They did incredible technology. I worked in very, very technical aspects of it. I like to sum it up by saying, you know, I've worked on systems that are now deployed in space, that fly, that are driving terrain underwater,
world.
right? So crazy stuff. And so it's kind of fun because you step back and you're like, oh, that's orbiting the Earth right now. You know, it's wild stuff. But in the end, I realized that the engineering was a lot of fun. Got to work on a lot of really good challenges. And then there was this piece of me that always saw the business side of it and was like, it's not connecting. Like there's something happening here where the business has this pain point and engineering is doing this, and like we have this little bit of a disconnect. And so I found myself bridging that disconnect quite often. And then
that's more common than we realize, isn't it?
It is, especially if technology development, R&D is done too much in a vacuum, right? If you don't get early feedback, if you don't if you don't really know who your customer is. Now, good teams are doing that, right? I don't want to make it sound like this is all over the place, but there's so many times where it is a little bit missed because, you know, you're trying to move fast, you're trying to, you know, do what the customer needs.
Right.
And so, you know, a really good, in small scale, it's a little bit easier to control that conversation, right? A product developer knows to have that conversation all the way back to client. But when you're talking like big development, hundreds of people, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of engineering that go into it, it gets much more complex. And so the development is usually over the course of, you know, 2 to 5 to 10 years.
Like you said, 5 years,
right? It can be very long term. And so in that process, I realized like there needs to be this consistent story between customer need, customer pain, and engineering deliverables, if you will. And this got me into this path of doing business development in that industry because that was really about understanding the customer and relating it back to the engineers. And since I was an engineer by training, I spoke that language.
Yeah,
right?
you could talk for.
And so I learned the business side, I learned the business development side, which opened up new opportunities. And so I kind of worked this way through to a really, really cool opportunity thanks to an awesome mentor I have. Just quick plug for mentors. They're amazing.
Definitely.
No matter where you
Hands
are,
up.
find one. This incredible mentor that I had that opened this opportunity for me to lead some of our internal research and development for the company. And soon after that, the person who I was working for left the company, and there was a massive void. And so I just said, I'll do it.
Oh, I love that.
One of those things where it's like, I'm so glad I did. Super challenging. It was incredibly challenging couple of years, but looking back, the opportunities I had in that time frame were amazing, right? We had a huge portfolio of projects, tons of money to invest in this stuff, and we got to actually change the way we approached development because there was a real if you were looking at strategically long term in the market, there was a huge shortcoming that was going to happen in the future because of the time it took to do development. And so we said, how do we do this faster? How do we get better at launching technology quicker? And so at that point, we really brought in this whole lean startup mentality into the company and started working with engineers that have been doing.
Oh, and I bet you led that.
The same
I can
thing.
see your little mind going.
Engineers are just like a lot. I've seen my experience was a lot of time engineers just like think this, and they really don't train to think outside that engineering zone.
Right. Especially if you've been doing it in defense of those people, if you've been doing it for 40 years this way and it's been doing great, and now technology is accelerating or disruptive technology is coming in at a pace much, much faster, you have to be able to adapt to that, right? And think about all
there's been a lot of that in
There's
the
been
last 10
so
years,
much
right?
of that in the last 10 years. And so it was time for a paradigm shift inside the company. And so what we did is we ended up creating our own internal incubator accelerator, kind of following the, friends and family angel funding and VC funding, kind of following that model, but using our own internal R&D dollars to do it. And so
that sounds so
figured
cool.
it out with compliance. We got it done right. And we started this whole innovation process in the company. And that was where I realized, like, I love this aspect of taking an idea, vetting it quickly, kind of fail fast, if you will, and learn from it, improve or move on to the next one, and then really accelerate the ones. And it opens opportunities that previously may not have been on the table.
So all of a sudden you're the startup guy.
So all of a sudden, there's a ton of, connections to startups. At that time, I was mentoring at the local incubator Groundswell, which now has its own building. It's just been an awesome journey, and that's been over a number of years now, and just have stayed connected. And at that point, realized like I love doing this stuff. I love providing that kind of strategy. I love seeing how it can go from idea, understanding the technology piece, and launching it all the way into a viable business. And that being a key part of it is always the viable business. So I ended up leaving big corporate. Really fantastic people, really fantastic, just amazing things there. But at the same time, I really want to have the impact in small business like we did internally.
That's your little,
and that's where that's where I ended up here. And it's funny, we talk about the company as a marketing company most of the time, but in reality, it's all about that growth strategy, right? It's all about kind of getting to that, what is it that you do, and how do we help you get where you really want to go, whether you involve technology in your process or not, but then leveraging the technology that's coming out, whether it be AI or whatever new technologies to help that business achieve it. So all that is how I went from rocket science to marketing. It's this crazy path.
And now you're doing growth strategy coaching, which is like, in my world, since I've known you, that is where you belong. It's because you, like you said it really, really well. You know how to look at every piece, and you understand every piece in a way that you can sit down, and you are so good at that coach. Like, I'm very direct and loud, and you're like, you see it and you're kind of like softly massage it. You're really good at that.
And it's funny too, because we talked about that a little bit, and I realized like I finally just have to like accept the fact like, hey, these are where my strengths are. These are my gifts. I should spend more time in areas where I'm strong, and just continue to develop those. And so it's a ton of fun to be able to really focus on those things. And so we take that into everything we do. But the best part is, as we've all experienced, how many people are out there that, we only have 24 hours in a day. Right. So how in the world do we help the hundreds of people that have these same problems?
And we're hoping we get more than 100 to listen. So exactly. How do we help more and more?
But even one-to-one that come to us throughout the year, right? There's so many people we have conversations with. How do we multiply that, make it thousands? And so this podcast is really kind of the outlet, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, I think stepping back, looking at the whole journey where it's at now, I'm really excited because of all these things that I've done. I've realized there is so much learning in an accelerated time frame. And now just being able to share that, it's like the reward. It's fun.
Yeah.
Having known me for as long as you know me, weren't you shocked when I called and said, let's do this podcast? Were you like a little bit off were you thrown? Because I know you were so overwhelmed with work.
It was oh my goodness. It was so funny. That was that time frame. I was like, why am I saying yes to this? I have like too much stuff going on, but it was like so spot on. It was so spot on that I was like, I've got do this. We need to do this.
We need to do. I think the same thing. When we talk about that, I said, this is a better way, because we kept talking about the people having issues, and I was like, knowing all those things, I said, I think we need to get out, as you say, that reach out to more people and help them out. And this is the great platform to help people. Just give them some idea about what they should be doing it.
And it really comes back to mission for me, because when I step back, it's like, I didn't start this business to own a marketing company. I started this business to help the people that I could help, right? And now we're expanding that. So this is just expanding that mission. And bonus points, because anybody listening can do any of this stuff for free. So they don't even need to pay somebody to learn this stuff. So it's huge.
It is huge. It's I know for me, being that I've always been, I kind of work my own little gig, I kind of take on the product, and then it becomes my baby, and my goal is just to make that success for the person who trusted me to run with it. And I've lived quietly in my own little bubble, and I've had friends and family in life call me Lulu's Land, because I like my little happy Lulu land. And so for me to go, oh, let's get verbal and go out into the world, and like, oh my God, you guys, I don't sit on the edge anymore because I'm fat in that seat. So like, I'm really self-conscious of things. So I was really surprised that,
it was
on my heart that we have to do this, because I I'm all about the lean and how to do it as inexpensively as possible, because we do know there's only 2% success rate. That means 98%, 98 people out of 100 are going to fail, and they're going to spend a fortune. And so I just didn't want to see it anymore. I couldn't stand it anymore. We met. We did a 3-way call, and something just started stirring. And I'm like, we have the perfect team, like we've seen it, we've done it, we've lived it. We've all got 20 years or more, and just a little bit. And so it was a must for me. Like, this was such a must. And even my daughter's like, Mom, what are you doing? Like, this is so against what you do. Because you guys, my business comes by referral.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, every time we've had that conversation, you're like, oh, maybe I should make a website. And then when we talk about it, you're like, just kidding. I've always done it this way. Like, well, I'm not doing that. And so the fact that you're like, no, we're doing this podcast, I was like, can you take a temperature here? You okay? Like, I was just, all right.
It really got serious when we did the trial run at Disney.
And we did fun, though. It was fun.
That was fun.
It was fun.
That moment just solidified it. We were like, whoa.
That really worked.
This needs to happen.
And you guys, I haven't said much in this about what I do in my background, but I know I talk more than everyone, so you've probably heard. But you guys, it started for me, and I think you probably know this. I don't know if Pawan knows this, but I was married. I went to college for, my degree was in marketing, and my minor was in corporate management. And I was married to, he's a very sweet guy, but college was not something he was really supportive of. I thought I'd go to law school, so I had to fight a lot to get through my college. And when I divorced him, I married my daughter's father, and I, at this point, was working 2 jobs. I couldn't use my degree because by then I was in restaurants. We were making 3 times the amount of money you were. Like, an entry level was $18,000. I was probably making $65,000. We had a restaurant at one point. And so my daughter's father did not see the need for work as much as I would really have enjoyed that. And so he decided that he was going to be this crazy inventor. And he had taken, you guys, I worked 2 jobs, 1 car, and he took the car apart. And I have a baby. So, I mean, not to be a jerk, but I was sort of pressured a lot to find a way to succeed. So I have this degree I worked really hard for. I have this small child. We're living in friend's house. I'm walking to 2 jobs and coming home to a man who's like, well, now I just put in a new part. I think it's going to drive faster. And I'm just going, just shoot me. I'm giving up. And he actually got it. He gutted this Chrysler LeBaron, so it was a big old car. He gutted it and put in a lawnmower engine and some hydraulics. And we actually got in and drove it. And I went, I don't know a lot, but that was kind of impressive. And so I remember coming home from my second job. And, I got a kid I'm taking care of, and we're living with friends, which I was mortified. He didn't seem to have a problem. And, but they were talking about how we could start this company, and we could raise some funding, which got my attention because I'm thinking we could actually pay rent somewhere we could get paid, right? And so we started to create this small company and started getting some funding. And then I realized we got to sell something. And so back then, I think I've told you guys, you would go to the library and you would look up people, or I would read the newspaper. And it became my mission. I was going to sell this sucker because I am getting out of my 2 job, raise a kid, live in the back house. I mean, it was horrible. And so I started picking up the phone. And I remember I called General Motors first. And they said to me, I said, can I just talk to somebody about, I have a drivetrain that gets 155 miles to the gallon. And the woman's like, oh yeah, you and everybody else. And I was like, there's other people doing this? And she goes, well, we see 5,000 things a day, a year. And I was like, seriously? Like, I think in my world, right? You guys, I'm young. I don't know any better. I think I'm like the only one that has a brilliant idea. So they're like, this is the process you go through. Well, I knew really fast that is not going to cut it for me. And so I called everybody, General Motors, Ford, Chrysler. I kept going around and around and around. And so I would pull out the newspaper and I would read something in the newspaper about someone, and I would track that person down. So that's how, instead of LinkedIn, I had my own thing. So I would call. So within 3 weeks of starting at General Motors, I got through to this gentleman. And he was kind of the product development guy, and he started talking to me, and he said, yeah, that's interesting, but we don't really do outside research, whatever. And so I went to everybody. You guys, at one point I talked to, oh God, what is the big company? United Technologies.
Oh, wow.
And I laugh because I always tell people that you don't understand the value of the cashier at Walmart. She knows the inside scoop. So she can get to your general manager. So you don't always have to start at the top to get there. So I'm calling United Technology. I find this guy. I leave this message. And now it's like 8 o'clock at night and I get this phone call. And I'm talking to this guy and he said, oh, I'm interested. Tell me more. So I'm telling him all about it. And there's so much noise in the background. And I said, can you hear me okay? Now I think I'm talking to a cashier level at United Technology. And the man says, now keep in mind, you guys, this is 28 years ago, probably 30 years ago. And he said, oh no, I'm on an airplane. Well, back then, wow. I'm like,
That's
oh my God.
You're like, what?
I'm like, they let you use a phone? He goes, honey, if they're going to give me the plane, they're going to let me use the phone. Who am I talking to? I'm like sitting there like, ghost, wait, now I'm humiliated. So I'm like, and he goes, it's okay. Take a breath. I want to help. And he did. He made some connections for me. And somehow I ended up back around in 3 weeks. I was back to the same guy at General Motors. And he said, you're not going away. Bring the car. And so once he let us in, then the other guys let us in.
So you realized your true gift.
I was like, I am persistent. I can do this. And so they told us it was political. And I went to the White House. And so I called every day for Al Gore, because back then Al Gore was heading up fuel sales stuff. And I called so many times that the receptionist said, LuAnne, read the paper. He's not even in the country. And that's when I realized I literally was offered, somebody found me and offered me a lobbyist job because I was so good at getting to those people. And we just we formed this company and we started down this path, and I got my pantyhose deal thrown my way, and that was kind of where the world turned for me. And so I never knew anything, but I knew that I could learn anything. Do you know what I mean? Like I was going to achieve. And so I got really lucky that I had enough deals and I flipped enough property that I could support my kid, even being single. And I did every deal on such a shoestring budget that recently when we decided to do a podcast, I thought it was the first time I truly realized that I do everything for no money because I never had any. Like it was always a challenge. And I realized that's when we came up with the whole thing that it's a need to launch system, because just like you, it was like I needed to solve this solution. And I don't know what made me think the podcast would do it. My prayer is that people are actually listening to what we're going to share. And that way people that don't have money and can't come out and hire us can catch on to it really quick.
Yeah.
And so, and when we talked and I went, oh my God, we're the perfect circle. Like we can literally teach every little piece. We've seen every little story. I just thought it was ideal. I will say, we've had some laughs and we're able to share, but I forgot, like we share stories behind the mics that really bring us to tears or help us to, we laugh so hard we wet our pants because I've tried something stupid and you guys are like, what were you thinking or whatever. But I didn't realize when we went to do it in live that I had to watch my mouth more. Like I have noticed that we spend more time editing out the things I say. But it's because, right, I didn't realize that we have to be delicate, right? Yeah. That's the only thing, you guys. So as an audience, we are trying to protect the innocent and we are trying to share the stories. And we have some incredible inventors that we would love to share what they've been through and how well they've done, but that's not our place. Yeah. So don't you agree that that's not what we came to do? So we always end on a tip. So give us a tip about you. Like, I think it would be really fun because we do take clients. Not that we did this, please. We did not do this for you to hire us. We did it in hopes that you didn't have to hire us, truly. But let's just say, if you could give one tip out there, what would it be about you that you would?
I would say, if you want to open new doors and opportunities for yourself, do something that scares you all the time. Like every day, do something that scares you just a little bit, whether it's saying yes to that opportunity, whether it's trying something you've never done before, like get yourself uncomfortable. And so it's
I do that every day.
Crazy.
I
But
do.
yeah, exactly right. Hey, I've got to call the CEO
Yep.
of General Motors
Every
or
day.
whatever it is. Or, I've got to pitch this idea that it's been brewing in the back of my mind, or I'm going to make that phone call and reach out about getting funding, whatever it is. Like, take those little steps, get used to uncomfortable, because sometimes, like I found when I just raise my hand and like, I'll do it, it opens in some incredible doors. And so when you're comfortable being uncomfortable, you just get incredible opportunities.
Oh, and that's so huge. We wouldn't be sitting here today if I didn't say I'm going to do it no matter what. And I love that. I always say, I ask myself this question often. If I wasn't afraid, what would I do? And it just resonates with me really well, because if I'm thinking about something and your mind is talking yourself out of it, you just say, wait a minute, if I wasn't afraid, what would I be doing? And it's always what you want to say yes to, but you're not, because you're like, oh. So what's your tip?
I think my tip, I think you said it pretty nicely, like take a risk. It's always worth it. I was going to say, don't let it go, but be smart. Just what's your limits are. Just know your limits, but you can do a lot of things by just knowing those things. If you know your limits, I think you are really succeeding in your business or personal life or anything.
Oh, I love that. I think my tip is believe in yourself, and know. I know this sounds crazy, but I used to go to Disney and stand in front of the castle and listen to the dreams do come true, and you chanted it when my kid was little, but dreams do come true. So for me, if General Motors is the place I need them to buy my product, I think it can happen. So if you believe that you can see it, you believe it, you just take the steps to do it. The worst that happens is you were wrong. But like you said, the doors that opened along the way, people sought me out for it was crazy, because I probably dove into a pool without looking to see if there was water often, which is actually what my attorney would say, like, seriously. Or, LuAnne, you're the only person I know that has the worst luck, but your car just broke down in front of a multimillionaire that now you talked in investing in the product you're working on. Like, that was just me. So I think that's been my only real gift in life, is that persistence that I always believe there's a way, there's a how, it's going to work. It's going to happen. And I've taken sales aptitude tests where it said that's your weakness, that you think it's always going to work out, or I'll talk my way out of it. So to do a podcast probably makes total sense, because I feel like we can talk our way into helping people. I really believe that. I think that this is going to make an impact and we're going to help people. I really believe it. And you guys, having said that, again, email us, ask us questions. Do we have it set up where they can ask us individually, or does it come to one?
Yeah, even if they just put it in there and just say, hey, this is for Pawan, or this is for
LuAnne, this
LuAnne.
is what I want to know. Ask. We want to teach what you need to hear. We want to give free feedback. We love to look at new products and tell our take on it. So we've now told you about us.
Tell us about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Tell you about
exactly. Tell us about you. To you. Thanks.